Good morning and a very warm welcome to you all today. And thank you for joining us as we talk about the power of AI from an entrepreneur's perspective. My name is Megan Sneeman, and I'm the Venture Relations Manager at Stakeholders. And we like to connect high quality tech companies with our angels who not only back those companies financially, but with their deep sector knowledge and expertise in the various tech industries. I know we have a few newcomers to the webinar today who have not joined us before, so I'm just going to run through some housekeeping bits before we start and chat to our esteemed guests. You'll be able to see a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We try to make these webinars as interactive as possible, so please do send your questions in that Q&A box as they pop up throughout the event, and I will try and get as many of those questions to Karen and Tabby at the end of the event. The webinar will last around 45 minutes, so please sit back, get comfortable, and turn off those Outlook notifications and let us entertain you with all things AI. If you miss anything because of homeschool or work demands, don't worry. We will send you a link to the webinar tomorrow and you can catch up. So let's get started. I have two guests joining me today, both from the same AI venture, Fimer. Fimer came to our attention as a recommended example of an inspiring success story via one of our registered angels. Fimer is a computer vision SaaS platform that turns cameras into sensors using AI that can then glean actionable insights from the environment. It's a self-learning system with applications in many areas, including parking, management, and market research. I have with me today Karen Burns, the CEO, and Tavi Tamiste, the CTO. They both have incredibly interesting stories to tell us as to how they got to this point in their entrepreneurial journey. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Karen first. Karen, please tell our audience a little bit about you and how you came to be the founder and CEO of Fimer.
Thank you, and thank you very much for having us on this webinar. So my background is actually a bit of a mixed bag. I'm Estonian by origin, and I left here in 2005 to actually pursue an education and career in film and television. So I graduated Queen Mary and UCL, did a master's in film and TV, and worked in London. And I always worked in IT because that was what paid the most, and that's where I kind of got things going. So I worked at British Telecom, and then for 4 years at the Care Quality Commission in London, looking after, it was basically the regulator for health and social care in England and Wales. And that's where I learned, I think, everything around strategic management, finance. I was trained in financial management, ITIL, Prince2, Scrum, etc. Was managing a £50 million operational budget. There was only 21 at the time, so it was a great foundation. Ended up in South Africa for a bit, and then in the Middle East. And in Abu Dhabi, I was working for the Government Media Zone Authority, and finally was able to pursue that, the dream I'd always had of working in film and TV. And my job was to sell the desert to Hollywood studios as a filming location. And I did quite well. So I was actually the first member of staff at the Film Commission, and we brought in Fast Furious 7, Star Wars 7, Top Gear episodes, etc. And I was working in all of the production teams as well. Did it for about a year and a half. Hated it, absolutely horribly hated it. Moved back to Europe in 2014 and I went back to IT. So decided this is where I was most useful, what drove me most, setting up teams, building something that's actually useful. And then I joined a company in Estonia called Moon Cascade, which at the time was the fastest software development house. And during my time with the company, I tripled their annual revenue. So I was with them for 2 years, and their team doubled from, I was the 43rd member of staff to nearly 100. And that's where I met Davi. So Davi joined to build up the AI team, and we worked really well together. So we decided that if ever there was a chance to set up a business, that's something we should do. So we did it.
Amazing. What a story. So I know how you and Tavi met, but Tavi, can you now give us more insight into how you became the CTO at Fimer?
Yeah. So my background definitely isn't as colorful as Karen's because I haven't worked together with Vin Diesel, I guess. But my background is definitely a bit more technical. So I started my career off as a telecommunications engineer. So I have a master's degree in telecommunications engineering. are working at large telecom operators here in our region, specifically in Sweden. And I was a really bad radio engineer, to be honest, but I was really interested in innovation and building new technologies and coming up with new ways to generate revenue. So at one point, I was actually working for the innovation and new growth department for this telecom company. And one of the goals was to actually sort of investigate this new thing that's called big data. And together with big data, we started looking at AI applications or machine learning applications as well. And my very first task, we actually created an algorithm that could predict when radio antennas will break 2 weeks in advance with like an 89% accuracy rate. And there was basically no going back for me since, because we just generated a lot of value from thin air using a brand new technology. So I've been building AI teams and AI applications ever since. When I came to Estonia, I worked at Moongascade, I met Karen. After that, I actually started my own AI consultancy, just working with large companies to make sure that whatever AI applications they build actually generate value. And then basically, I saw, while working as a CEO for a while, I saw that that's not really where my sweet spot is. I'm more sort of looking at what products are, what the technology is. So that's when basically we moved to FIMA. I decided that, or we decided that actually the best place where my value can be sort of trained out was in a technical position, which is my passion as well.
And similarly, because of my background running budgets and teams and doing business development, we thought this complements each other really well. So hence the CEO position.
Absolutely. So were you two just having a discussion at work one day and obviously talking about all things AI and where you thought there was a gap in the market, and what made you both go, let's do this, let's start FIMA?
Well, it wasn't quite like that. It did come out of a couple of projects that we did with the consultancy company, where we saw a real gap in the market, especially with the computer vision applications. Mainly that it's really hard for actually computer vision applications to sort of be implemented with customers. So you need usually a team that comes into the company, does the integrations, trains the models. There's no like software as a service angle to it that has been done successfully. And when we started looking into it, we sort of understood why it wasn't done successfully. And then we sort of figured out that there is a way that we can actually solve it. And that's how FIMA was basically born.
However, I'd comment also that we did have a chat at Mobile World Congress, actually, to have over a beer.
That's true.
So we did sit down and decide that we should set it up. And then kind of, I think, thoughts were set in motion. I left Moongascade, had a baby, worked with the cyber security company for a bit, while David set up the AI company. And the plan was always to come and do this together. So I joined the AI consultancy, and then we did a massive pivot, obviously, away from consulting, monthly income, big projects, to building a SaaS product.
Incredible. Thank you for sharing that story. Before we get into the questions, I'd like to pause for a second and just run a couple of quick polls, questions to our audience. You should see a poll on your screen now. There are 2 questions there. And if you can just flag your choices on each of those questions, that would be excellent. We'll launch the poll afterwards so you can see the results. The first question is, what do you see as the main benefits of AI? It's multiple choice here. So the first answer is saving time and money by automating processes, avoiding mistakes and human error, operational 24/7, mass market potential, or facilitates decision making. And the second question is, what do you think are the main risks of investing in AI? And those answers are difficulties with data management, lack of transparency about algorithms, huge competition. It's hard to understand what's underneath the bonnet, and it's riskier than other sectors. I see people are answering, and those answers are coming in. Thank you for everyone who has answered. I'm going to leave it open for a little bit longer, just to make sure we get as many answers in as possible. It's still going up. Let's keep that open. So we've just got those 2 multiple choice questions, and we're going to share the results and have a quick chat about the answers to those polls. I'm going to leave it open for another 5 seconds. We've got a lot of answers in, so let's see if we get one or two more. A huge majority of the audience has voted. Brilliant, closed. Okay, so let's see. We should see the poll results on your screen now. So that first question, what do you see as the main benefit of AI? Majority of the audience said saving time and money by automating processes. And then we've got the sort of second highest there is avoiding mistakes and human error. Tavi, Karen, any comments on the results of that first one?
Yeah, I think that the first one is definitely one of the main goals of AI. The second one, avoiding mistakes and human error, that's definitely something that people want to do with AI, but it's more difficult because if you look at what AI is, it's basically sort of very, very, very fancy pattern detection from historical data, at least what it is currently. And what if you want to avoid human mistakes, what tends to happen is this historical data tends to have the same mistakes in them that humans make. So this is really, really, really complicated to iron out of the AI algorithms just because the data usually contains these mistakes. So this is one of the, I think, misconceptions about AI is that it can somehow be better than humans, while in reality, the data has to be better than humans, and then you can sort of generate real value out of AI.
Really interesting point. Thanks, Tavi. Let's go to the second question then. What do you think are the main risks of investing in AI? And there is a tie here. The two top risks people felt were the lack of transparency about algorithms and hard to understand what's underneath. And I've actually seen that we were chatting about that with the AI entrepreneurs coming, and how do we really know what's under the hood? So what are your comments on those results there?
So, yeah, Karen, do you want?
I just wanted to comment on the kind of funny discord here between kind of not understanding what's the value of the IP and is there really AI there, but then not perceiving it as riskier than other sectors. So that's quite interesting. So there's obviously great desire to invest in it, and then willingness probably to overcome the kind of educating yourself to understand what then is underneath the bonnet. So I think that discord is quite interesting.
Tavi, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, so I think this there's always a risk of, because of the obscurity of AI or machine learning or neural networks, that it can be super hard to understand if the application that people are investing into actually does what they claim to be doing. And to be honest, in most cases they don't. I mean, that's what I've seen in the past as well, is that marketing tends to be really, really good, but the real world application, founders basically sell potential, right? So they sell potential, and with AI, it's really easy to do because yes, potentially AI can do anything, but what you need to really start looking at is that what data you have inside your startup or company, whatever, to make this potential or to realize this potential, basically. So if I want to sort of detect a cat from an image, I need 500 pictures of cats. Fair enough, right? That's pretty easy to do. But if I need to sort of understand if some complex piece of machinery on an assembly line is defective, I might need 300,000 images of defective machinery and 2.5 million images of not defective machinery. So do I have that, right? So this is one of the sort of easiest checks you can do to sort of understand whether a company or a startup is sort of capable of doing what they claim they're doing.
Really interesting. Thank you so much for your comments on those. And good to get the insight into the audience and where they're at. Let's delve into the questions then. And just a reminder again to everybody online, if you have questions that pop into your mind along the way, please put them into the Q&A pane at the bottom of your window, and I'll get as many to them to Tavi and Karen at the end of the webinar. So to start off, Tavi, what is AI and what does it mean for investors who invest in AI?
Yeah, so what is AI? So when I started working with applied AI about 6 or 7 years ago, I felt I knew what AI was. If anybody asks me right now what AI is, I don't really have a clue because it has been sort of a popular scientific term these days, and everybody in the media is writing about it a little bit differently. So when I talk about AI, what I talk about is applied machine learning, and machine learning is quite concrete. It's basically a field of software development that allows basically computers to learn from large amounts of data, right? So basically what it means is that you feed a computer a huge amount of data that has patterns in it, and basically the algorithms learn from this data, and then they make sort of decisions based on that. One of the common misconceptions about AI is that AI learns on its own. That is the end goal, but right now that's not the case. So if we're looking about applied applied applications, in most cases, people teach the AI, and then the AI sort of gets put into production and makes these decisions based on what people have taught them. Self-learning is something that is really, really complex that we're also trying to do here at FIMA. But the problem with self-learning applications within AI is that how do you control what the computer learns and what it doesn't? So it's really difficult to understand that if you feed it with data, you can start learning completely different things. For example, if you build an algorithm that is meant to detect a horse from images, right? But every now and then you feed it with a picture that has a small watermark underneath. Eventually, it will start learning the watermark because that's the go-to thing. So it will no longer be able to detect horses because it has a sort of a next common denominator to look at. So these types of problems are really, really complex. And this is why data scientists spend most of their time working with data, not so much time working with the algorithms.
Okay, really interesting. Do you, I mean, I see a lot of startups claiming to use AI. When you dig below the surface, this isn't always the case. So what pointers can you give entrepreneurs to ensure they are truly creating an AI offering? Tavi?
Yeah, so this is always difficult, and I think entrepreneurs are becoming more sort of aware of this problem as well. But there are a couple of pointers you can look into. So first and foremost, if you're trying to invest into an AI startup, have experts on hand who are willing to do the review of this company. I mean, when we started our consultants, we actually did exactly that for private equity firms. And we had I think there was one time when the company wanted to invest in a startup that was dealing with natural language processing, and we vetted 6 of them, and only 1 of them had proprietary IP. So this was 3 years ago, so it might be a bit different now, but that's kind of the market situation. So what can you do? So first thing, what I mentioned about data before, if you go in and you have a company that wants to do something with AI, make sure that they have access to the data that you need to make this AI application happen, and also make sure that you have the rights to this data, because if you just scrape data off the web, you might not have the licenses to actually use this data. Second one, make sure that there aren't any obvious sort of clues that they're mentioning that they're using somebody else's API, like IBM Watson or Microsoft Cognitive Services. This happens very often with chatbots, that IBM and Microsoft have really good natural language processing engines, and actually you can build a very good chatbot on top of that, but at the end of the day, it's still Microsoft's logic underneath, or IBM's logic underneath that. So that's really sort of key feature. And the second thing, of course, make sure that, or the first thing is make sure that this company has data scientists, right? People who know how to train algorithms to train the AI. And also, there needs to be a hand in hand with data science and software development, because data science and sort of AI and machine learning is in its infancy still, I would say. So making something work is one thing. Creating a prototype is one thing. Scaling it to a production grade software solution is a completely another thing. And some things, you might not be able to scale at all. So in this case, you need to make sure that they have the capabilities to build this algorithm, but to also scale it to a production grade solution.
Thank you. Karen, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I think Tavi said all the key points, and then for me the first checks probably would be, what's the team composition? Is it only business people, or do you actually have access to, or already within the team, the data science skill set? And the second one is to just use help, external help. So when we did our seed round last year, most VC firms would have us talk to a specialist to make sure that we had proprietary IP.
Okay. So, I mean, those tips that you've shared with us, I mean, that really, for me, then covers both sides, the entrepreneur side, how they can get real and really ask the questions. Do they have, the true AI in their offering? And investors, what kind of things they can ask. So it's all about having access and the rights to the data, not using other APIs underneath their sort of offering. Data scientists to actually train the AI, do they have them in the company doing that, and speak to experts? Would you say that sort of summarizes it for the entrepreneurs and the investors?
Yeah, that definitely sort of sums it up quite nicely, I think.
Brilliant. Karen, then you started as a consultancy. You're now a product company. How did that change happen?
So we always plan to pivot to a product company, and the consultancy was essentially set up to try and find what that product could be, in which field of AI. So is it natural language processing, computer vision? Is it something else, time series prediction? And train up a team, and then find kind of a gap in the market or a need somewhere, and then do the pivot once we were kind of comfortable doing that. So I guess it's a bit different in terms of how startups come to be, and more perhaps thought out. And we were working on a project with a city government utilizing their existing camera infrastructure, and then we did a really good job of it. So essentially turning cameras into sensors, doing automated data collection on what happens in their streets and so forth. We looked into it a bit deeper and realized that there are millions of cameras everywhere, security cameras, CCTV, etc. And the feed is not really being turned into value. So you can, in a security use case, you can look after the fact, you can see that an incident happened or a theft occurred or property damage occurred, but nobody uses it to make a real-time decision on this is happening. An AI would trigger a response from a security company or a law enforcement agency, for example. So there's all this potential of using existing infrastructure to look at how businesses operate, retail centers operate, are our streets safe, etc., and give that data to decision makers or owners to kind of make good strategic decisions. So that's where decision came from, to pivot specifically towards computer vision and start working with camera infrastructure.
Now, when you onboard a new company, and I suppose any entrepreneurs in the AI sector onboard a new company, is a lot of time spent on consulting or getting them onto the system and understanding how it works? Or is your goal for you to be able to implement that system quickly, easily, efficiently, without a lot of time from your side in training?
Exactly. So we really wanted to move away from consulting and into a SaaS model where you can just simply set up the system, pay a monthly fee based on a camera number. Essentially, that's how the business model operates for us. And it should be invisible and accessible. So the whole idea around FIMA is that you are able to implement the system really quickly, really easily, really little friction. And there are no massive setup fees, having to consult for 3-4 years or 3-4 months with expensive data science specialists. So we want really for this to be as a low friction as possible.
Brilliant. And actually, when you said invisible now, Tavi mentioned earlier, you get AI that's invisible and you get the AI that's super sexy. Talk to me about those two AI options.
Yeah. So the way I would put it, so there's two types of how AI can communicate with the end user. So the first one, which I think is the most optimal, is that it's invisible. You can best see it as something like Uber, right? What you want to do is you want to get an Uber ride to somewhere. You don't care how you do it. You want to get it as efficiently as possible. So you don't really care that there's a couple $100 million worth of AI tech behind that. You just want the service to be as good and as great as possible. The second one is to make the AI super sexy. So this is commonly used in self-driving applications, that you know that you're on the bleeding edge of something and you know that you're using something that is super complex. What tends to happen there is that the user base that can understand this type of technology and is willing to sort of make the buy-in into the technology rather than the end use case tends to be smaller, and tends to be sort of, you have to work with explaining it a lot. You have to work in marketing to make sure that it's, won't take over the world and all that type of stuff. So I think the trend is that most of these applications are actually moving towards being invisible in the background and just making sure that the end users get the best possible use case out of it.
Okay, thank you. Karen, tell me about your experience of investors. What has that been like, both VC funds and angels?
So far, it's been great. So we spoke to nearly 70 investors, so either VC funds or angels last summer, preparing for a round and then raising it. And most engaged either an LP or an external partner to vet the AI. And we were very open and honest and kind of working with them and showing what we have, so that they know for sure that we do have proprietary IP and so forth. The knowledge, I wouldn't say there wasn't really a trend. So it was very scattered. Some angels would know more because of their very own technical background, and some would just be from a very business background and would need help. Same with VCs. Some just saw the potential and we're quite happy on the basis of our previous track record and what we wanted to achieve. And then most would bring in an external specialist to vet, but it wasn't the case with everybody. So it was quite a wide experience. Also, we saw that it was kind of 50-50 in terms of kind of understanding the use case and not understanding it. So again, I think that shows the pull in terms of what's under the bonnet and what it can do. So, okay, you have AI and this, but what's the next step? So we still had to educate the investors quite a bit in terms of, okay, let's take a step back and then run through what it is computer vision, what it can do, what it is capable of now, and so forth.
I think one of the things that I can add on here as a tip for angels would be that if you get a large investor that is doing their technical due diligence, feel free to ask this due diligence, because I think that happened a lot in our case, where one sort of big investor went through everything really deeply and then shared it among the other investors as well.
Mm-hmm. That also worked because Estonia is quite a tiny community of investors, but perhaps geography-based or sector or vertical-based, it might work internationally as well.
And have you found a lot of the investors that got involved with FIMA, are they wanting to get involved with the business from a business perspective, or was it more, I understand what you're doing and I want to be a part of it, but then step back?
It's 50-50 again, I would say, David. So basically, we have some investors who are, I mean, after every single board call, they'll give feedback, offer introductions, advice, etc. They're very, very involved, very excited. And then there are those ones who said from the outset that we will take a step back and engage if you ask us to. So, which is great for us, so we can kind of get the balance of, you know, help that comes proactively, and then if we need to, we'll go and reach out to the guys that we know have the connections that we are after.
Yeah, but generally, especially in a field as complicated as AI, you really sort of need to rely on your own sort of technical competences and stuff. So it's very rare that you find a VC that has, you know, 10 years worth of experience in how to scale AI software as a service companies. I mean, such people don't exist. So so in that sense, it's more about sort of gauging the market, making sure that the market feedback is correct, making sure that the product is correct, and sort of going towards that type of thing.
Thanks, Tavi. I would like to explore general versus narrow AI and how soon you think we might be heading towards general AI.
Yeah, so what is narrow AI and what is general AI? So narrow AI is a software component that is designed to do one specific thing. So, you know, you need to detect a horse or a cat from an image. That's narrow AI. You need to predict what the credit score of this person is. That's narrow AI. And 99.99% of the applications that AI is currently being used at is narrow AI. Now, general AI is basically a more complex sort of AI that can actually do many different things. So it can potentially predict the credit score of this person and understand whether, you know, this is a horse or a cat on an image, and how to get the best optimal route from one place to another, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is the actual type of, you know, Skynet of things. So it can do many other different things. There have been advances on how to do this, and then one of the functions of general AI is also self-learning. So it needs to take feedback from the environment and learn based off that. And then you have the same problem on what data is correct and what data isn't correct, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think Google DeepMind or Google Brain, as it's now called, is one of the sort of leading companies in the world who's working with general AI. But I have a feeling that we won't be seeing general AI within the next 5 years because there's just not enough data to learn with it. The neural networks that we're using to make these predictions are not complex enough. So that needs to get a lot better as well. So yeah, I'm saying it's about 5 years away, maybe even more. Although there is one disclaimer here that if quantum computing takes off for some reason, that might have a huge effect on what general artificial intelligence is and sort of will be in the future. So if that takes off before the 5 years, then ignore my sort of prediction.
5 years also seems quite soon for general AI. But I mean, what I'm saying is that it's an area, gosh, that takes so much to comprehend it and what is possible. There's a bit that I guess if you don't understand it fully can seem a little bit scary as well. Yeah.
And one interesting thing, if I can add on top of that, is also that we actually might sort of hinder general AI a bit with legislation as well. So if you're looking at something like the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, this actually has a huge effect on how AI applications are built and how people's data privacy is handled, which immediately narrows down the amount of data you can use to train models with, right? So general AI will be sort of, I think, hindered by that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing because I strongly believe in data privacy, and we're also building FIMA in a way that we don't infringe on people's privacy and that no personal data gets logged there. I'm just saying that is a factor we need to take into account, that the legislation will have an effect on this as well.
Okay, so then where do you think that AI is headed in the next few years?
What I'm seeing is that there's going to be a huge uptake in AI platformization and automation. So you can already see some things happening with Google's AutoML platform, that actually you don't need data scientists to generate AI models. This will become, I think there's 100 startups out there that are working on this. One of them has to get it right. I'm pretty sure about that. So I'm seeing that the first things that will happen is that parts of AI will be optimized in the same way that parts of software development was optimized 10 years ago. So there will become standards. It will become more simpler. Data cleansing tools will become more important and develop further. So I think to sum all of this up, AI is going to get a lot cheaper, and so the implementing of AI will not be such a huge piece of a company's AI. It will be a tool like any other.
Yeah, so accessibility, I guess, is one of the keywords, and that's where FIMA comes in as well. So we want to make it accessible just like that as well.
So Karen, tell me why it is such an exciting space to work in as an entrepreneur?
For me, the excitement comes from like Davi and yourself has mentioned as well, is from the potential that we could change with AI, the levels of automation we can achieve, but also perhaps more equitability that we can achieve with it. So the algorithms are only as good as the data that goes into it. So if you train something with biased data, you're never going to get the bias out of it. So I'm hoping that AI will help eliminate that bias and be a more like help create a more equitable, whether it's living world or kind of a decision-making process.
Okay, and what are the challenges you face in the sector? Karen, I'll let you answer, and then Tavi, if you want to add anything, that'll be great.
Just to add on perhaps with the previous topic as well, another really exciting thing about the field of AI is the influx of women into it. So often the backgrounds of statistics where more women, at least in Estonia, have been working in, can do the kind of changeover in career and join the field. So our head data scientist is a woman. So the team is really balanced between male and female, which in a software company is quite unusual, I guess. So that's a great, exciting thing about AI as
and
well.
If I can add on top of that, that's actually a necessity while building data science teams, is having a gender balance as well, because people look at data sets differently. So if you basically want to train an algorithm to think about something, you need to have both male and female data scientists working on this. So that's a thing that we're keeping in our team as well, is that the first hire was a female data scientist. The next one that we hired today basically is a male data scientist. Next one after that will most likely be a female data scientist again, so that we can keep this sort of unbiased thing, because it's not just about having sort of equality. It's all about having the AI not create the human mistakes that we were talking about in the beginning as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, Jacqueline de Rojas, she mentioned that last year in a webinar with her, talking about tech and women in tech, and saying how important it is to have a diverse team creating the AI solutions, so that, like you said, Tavi, you're getting all angles and you're not going to make the same mistakes. So really interesting. I mean, do you think that's something that investors should be looking at? How diverse is your data scientist team?
I think yes, but in reality, that's never going to happen, because data scientists are super hard to find in the first place. So, if a company has a data scientist, that's the first checklist done. I think what investors need to really focus on is that if they invest in the company and the company raises X amount of funds, they need to be sure that the founders going down the line think about this. So it doesn't matter who your first data scientist, make sure from this point forward you take this into account. It's kind of hard to find diverse teams still in startups in the field of data science, but it's just, think about this once you've raised the funds.
Okay.
I guess one of the use case comments I would make here for FIMA is around how physical space is used. So can we see women with prams, for example? Can they even, what's the trajectory they must take in order to go across a square or park? Is it safe for them to have to go around bollards? Just really basic use case. Another one perhaps is around Uber or Bolt in Estonia, where there have been built in these safety features, so that when I get in a car, I will tell my partner or my mother or my friend that I'm coming home and this is where I am in real time. So if something happens to me, you can engage that. So that's something a woman would probably think about first.
Yeah.
And I think I didn't respond to your second question. What did you ask?
We were talking about the challenges that you face in the sector. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that before I get onto the questions from the audience.
I guess hiring is one challenge, but that might just be because of the region we're located in. Davi, do you want to comment on it?
Yeah, so hiring is complex. When I started off about 6-7 years ago, it was impossible to find data scientists at all to build anything. Nowadays, it's gotten better because it's such a hot topic. Everybody's talking about it. People are quite widely the information about really high salaries of data scientists have been quite highly publicized in the media, I think, as well, which I think in the long run is good, because the more people we have, it balances out a bit more. But actually finding software developers who can make AI into a product, that's, I think, the unicorn people that are really, really hard to hire right now, and that we're basically training out from scratch at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It's been incredible chatting with you. I'm going to get into the questions now from the audience. A few questions have come through. So the first question here is, how can I work out whether AI could help in my business?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. So when we were having the consultancy company, the motto we had at the time was that if there's any other way to solve a problem than machine learning or AI, you should probably go with that other way. Because building AI applications is complicated. It takes a ton of money to make it happen properly. Also, if you're trying out AI for the first time, most likely your first project will definitely fail. That's just how things are at the moment, unless you get a really, really senior person to come in and build something from scratch. But the investment actually takes a ton of time as well. How you can basically figure out where to use AI is that you need to think about processes that are really algorithmic and happen really often. So things like credit,
repetition.
credit checking of people, fraud detection, things that happen very often, but you have a ton of data because they happen very often and that are confined to an algorithm. That's where you can basically use AI the most right now, or the easiest.
Okay. What was there a particular company that inspired your own journey?
I don't think there was. Not really, no. Our own journey was more inspired by like a dream to achieve something really world-changing with technology that's not democratized yet. So we're kind of from the background of let's do something good, accessible, great. So that's the kind of key driver I think that was there for Dali and me.
So I think one of the key things that I'm looking at is a company called Pipedrive, which is a sales CRM. And what they managed to do with their CRM system is incredible. They managed to make it so simple, easy to use for everyone. So we want to take this incredibly complex technology and kind of pipe drive it, so make it really, really easy for everybody to use and to generate value from. So I think that's one of the key things. But yeah, I think democratization of AI is the key here.
Okay. There's another question that's talking about the competitive landscape of FIMA and how does that look? How do you make sure you sort of stand out, differentiate yourself in the competitive landscape? You know, are there big competitors out there, and how do you fit in with them?
Yeah. So there's of course there's competitors out there. That's definitely, you know, I would be a bit worried if we didn't have any competitors. Let's put it like that. I think the competitive landscape, one thing that people aren't really focused on is the UI UX of it all. So to make sure that whoever uses your software, that it's easiest and you get the most value from it, sort of as sort of simply as possible. So it's kind of the, you know, I hate saying this because it's kind of become a cliche, but you know, you have to be an Apple in the world to make AI applications good. The second thing about the competitive landscape is that so let's take our applications, which, you know, you're getting data from cameras. So let's say a camera provider like I don't know, Bosch wants to do the exact same thing that we do, and they hire 500 data scientists to do it. The problem there is that you can hire these 500 data scientists, but if you don't have the underlying data to train your models with, you still won't end up with a good result. So the only real competitors that you can have are companies that have really, really built into acquiring this visual data that we work with. And there's not many of those out there that really have sort of focused on this. And I think that's one of the keys where we stand out as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do you, another question's come in, how do you show customers the value of your product when it isn't inherently revenue generating or cost saving?
Mm-hmm. So the way we have worked and are still working is doing pilots and case studies. So going with a very specific client profile, timing it, and then in the end, understanding what the value was. Did it deliver a cost saving and or did it achieve some sort of revenue generation as well? So FIMA can do both, but it depends on the sector essentially that it's implemented in. And these case studies are going to be published in our case on our Medium site in the coming months, essentially, as we build these, as we kind of finish these at the moment.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun to see that the companies are using our solution for things that we couldn't really even imagine in the first place. So we have companies measuring, you know, how many people walk by an ad. We have companies measuring how many people, you know, go to the ATM, you know, and they're doing this completely anonymously. So there's no personal data and there's no faces and anything. We don't do face recognition or anything, but the statistics on its own can be of huge value to one specific company.
Yeah, so in an airport case, for example, how much time do people spend on airside and how much on landside? And then based on that, what kind of offering can we put here, generate more revenue, make them stay perhaps longer? And that drives this kind of strategic decision making. So it's not something that gets you a cost saving the first week you implement it. It might, but it's more of a strategic kind of component to help make you better decisions and how to drive revenue. Similarly, like David mentioned, the kind of advertising space. So where do you put billboards so that people would actually see them? Another great use case is around fake COVID advertising that one of our resellers is using the tech for. There's a news billboard with incorrect data about COVID, and then research is then being done on top of that to see how that affected that local population based on how many people saw that advert and for how long.
Really interesting. I love how those use cases expand as the companies you're piloting with, or case, you do the case studies with, you see new ways you can use it. Last question that's come through. Can you use diverse lay people, for an example, as end users to help data scientists achieve those unbiased solutions?
Yes, so that's a from my mind a bit of a controversial topic. So it's kind of like the same thing as Google is using with CAPTCHAs. I mean, I think most of us have used this when you try to log in somewhere and it says, pick, 3 pictures where a bicycle is at, right? That's basically you training Google's machine learning algorithm. But there is a problem of data accuracy and data validity there because, in some cases, so the easiest use case that I can say is that, let's say you have to detect all the cars from an image, and let's say you're looking at a street view camera. So if you ask a layperson to please label all the cars in this image, so please draw a box around all the cars in this image. Okay, so the easiest thing is that you label the cars on the street, so you draw a box around the cars on the street. But let's say there's a billboard with a car advert on it. Do I label these as well? And this is where the things become really complex, is that, do you want the algorithm to identify this? And giving this information in a really understandable way to be crowdsourced per se can get really difficult and can actually sort of reduce the accuracy of your algorithm. So yes, you can do this, but not in all applications. So we're not looking at this at the moment.
Okay, and I know we've gone over time a couple of minutes. I just want to get this last question in before we close off. A follow-up to the previous question. Do you find potential customers are willing to pay your usual quote price for the case studies or the pilots? And how many convert then to full-time paying customers?
Mm-hmm. So we don't quote per se per pilot. We still use our standard SaaS pricing, which is based on a per month per camera model. Yes, they are willing to pay. So far, all have converted or are in the process of, and those who are in the process of are B2G customers.
Okay, it's just about adding the value to them, right? Showing them what value your offering can give to them.
For them, for the B2G case, it's really about procurement process lengthiness, which was heavily disrupted by COVID. So that's kind of that. But B2B clients, yes.
Oh, thank you. Karen and Tavi, I can't thank you enough for giving up your time today, for talking to us about AI, for helping to just make it more understandable from an entrepreneur's perspective, from an investor's perspective. It has been an absolute pleasure talking with you. So thank you. I wish you both the best of luck in the future of FIMA and your business, and we'll be keeping an eye on you and watching you grow from strength to strength. And thank you to everyone who's watched today for asking the questions. It's always so wonderful to get that kind of interaction from you. So that we can pose those questions to our guests. If you missed anything, you'll receive an email tomorrow with a link to the recording, as well as all the details of our upcoming events. We do have a really busy few weeks ahead. This Friday, we're welcoming Lisa Ventura. She's the founder and CEO of the UK Cybersecurity Association. She'll be talking to us about how to protect small businesses. Next week, we speak to Ollie Barrett on how to harness the power of your network. And later in February, we are joined by the CEO of one of our own ventures on the platform, Tim Sanford, as we put his sustainable food business, New Unlimited, in the virtual spotlight. Our events program is always looking for new speakers and subject suggestions, and would really value your feedback. So please do take the quick survey that will pop up in a few minutes as we close today's webinar. Thank you once again, Karen and Tavi. Thank you to everyone for joining us. If you know an investor who would like to be a part of our professional network, please recommend them and look out for our investor referral program on our website. And likewise, if you know a company that is needing funding, please refer them to us so we can get the ball rolling with them. Stay safe, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you online again soon.